You're letting him kill Martha. Why'd you say that name? Find him. Save Martha. Martha, why did you say that name? Why did you say that name? Hi, David O'Sullivan here, and you're probably thinking, David, what the hell are you doing on the floor? Well, I'm facing a bit of a dilemma here. I recently picked up Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice, the Ultimate Edition. Why does it have the longest title in the world? I've got it here on Blu-ray. I've got Man of Steel here as well, which isn't currently in my collection here. It's in my kind of overflow collection in my room. But I thought I'd bring it back in here because I wanted to put them both together side by side in my collection, because I'm not a massive fan of Batman v Superman. I did like it. I didn't love it. I thought it was alright. If you want to know my full in-depth thoughts on the film, I've got a 30-minute review, annotation somewhere, I suppose, or link down below, because I spent like 30 minutes talking about the film. I don't know why. I just went on and on. So if you want to know what I thought about the film, the theatrical cut anyway, I go on for about 30 minutes about what I liked, what I didn't like, so be sure to check out that video if you want to know what I thought about the film. I have actually seen the Ultimate Edition as well. I saw it a few weeks back when it came out on digital download, and it was a slight improvement, I would say, over the theatrical cut. Like I said, I didn't hate the theatrical cut. It did have a lot of flaws, it did have a lot of problems and issues with it. I did kind of like the film overall. I didn't think it was great. I didn't love it. Like I said, I think it could have been so much better. The Ultimate Edition was a slight improvement. It wasn't a massive improvement in my opinion. It wasn't a radically different film, but I'll get onto that a little bit later. First off, like I said, I've got these films both here, and I actually really like Man of Steel. A lot of, I've got Man of Steel t-shirt on here. It made me realise how much I actually like Man of Steel. I think Man of Steel is great. I really love it. I think it gets a lot of unfair criticism, and it's not perfect, definitely. It's not as if I would give it 5 stars or anything. I give it 4 stars. But yeah, I actually really like Man of Steel, and I think Batman v Superman, although I did like it, I didn't think it was as good as Man of Steel. But yeah, I was going to put them both in my collection, and then I realised I don't have enough space. I keep running out of space. I had Unbreakable and Snowpiercer, which 2 great films, by the way, if you haven't seen them. Unbreakable, really underrated, original superhero film, essentially, from M. Night Shyamalan, which it's one of his more underrated films, I would say. Everyone goes on about Sixth Sense and all that, but The Unbreakable, I think, is really great, and like I said, it's essentially a superhero film in disguise, and it's very original, it's very different. It's almost like a kind of mystery thriller, a superhero film in disguise as a mystery thriller. I really like it, but yeah. And Snowpiercer, I thought was absolutely amazing. I really love Snowpiercer. It really blew me away. I think it's probably one of the best films of the past 5 years, I would say, or maybe that's going to be too far, but I don't know. I really liked it. The only reason I was going to take them out and replace them with these 2 was because I thought it would make sense having these 2 in my collection, even though I'm not a massive fan of Batman v Superman, and I'm not head over heels in love with Man of Steel or anything, but it's like, how could you not have these films in your superhero movie collection? These 2 are both comic book movies up here, and I've got the Dark Knight trilogy, Superman the movie, Watchmen, V for Vendetta, Dredd, so essentially all DC. And so I thought, I may as well put these in there too, because as much as I love these 2 films, they're not really... I mean, Snowpiercer is based off of a graphic novel, but it's not really a superhero film. And although Unbreakable is essentially a superhero movie in hiding, it's not based off of any comic book. So it's like, do I count these or not? Do I say these are superhero movies but not based off comic books? Or do I say they're comic book movies but they're not superhero films? I thought I would just leave these out and put them in a different section. And I'll put these here, so there we go. I've got Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and it makes sense because then I've got Batman v Superman next to all the Batman films, as well as Man of Steel next to the Superman films. So I've got all DC movies there. I've got V for Vendetta, I've got Watchmen, I've got Superman the movie, the Dark Knight trilogy, Batman v Superman, Man of Steel, and Dredd. Actually, Dredd's not DC, it's 2000 AD, but it's kind of DC-ish in a way. So yeah, that's my collection sorted out. This wasn't supposed to be a collection update video, but I suppose it is. So there we go. Okay, and here we go. Here, as promised, is my kind of review in a sense for Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice, the Ultimate Edition. So obviously 30 minutes of extra footage. I did watch this a few weeks back when it was first released on digital download, but I thought I'd wait until I picked it up on Blu-ray. I finally got a chance to pick it up on Blu-ray. I haven't actually watched it on Blu-ray yet, but like I said, I have seen the Ultimate Cut, and overall I'd say it is an improvement on the theatrical cut. Now, is it a ginormous improvement? I don't think so. You know, like I said earlier on, it's not a radically different film, but it does change certain things. It does add certain things here and there, and it does improve the film, I would say. The biggest thing I could say that this film does best to improve upon this film is the fact that it adds in bits here and there to certain scenes, especially early on, that make certain scenes more fleshed out, and the ordering of certain scenes in terms of how they're sequenced and the whole structuring of the first act really is way better, because one of the biggest issues I had with the theatrical cut was that the first half of the film, and especially the first act, felt very disjointed. It felt very jarring in terms of how it's cut together. Like, we'd go from one random scene to another random scene in a very jarring fashion. Like, we'd be in one place with one character, and then all of a sudden we'd be in a different place in a completely different location. It was very kind of jarringly cut together, like I said. And all the scenes kept happening really quickly. There was loads of little scenes just jammed together all over the place. That first act was really jumbled and really kind of like a bit all over the place. But that's actually not an issue with the Ultimate Edition. With the Ultimate Edition, with the extra added in footage, or the footage they put back in, the first act and the first half of the film, the whole film really, it flows a lot better, because certain scenes are now fleshed out, certain scenes now make sense. The ordering of the scenes are put into a sequence now which kind of makes more sense. It kind of has a better flow to it. It moves a lot better. Whereas the theatrical cut, it was, like I said, a little disjointed, a little discombobulating. It was a little bit all over the place. Whereas in the Ultimate Edition, like I said, with the bits they put in now, it makes a lot more sense in certain bits, and it flows a lot better. For example, the Africa storyline, this whole subplot involving the bullets and that whole investigation Lois goes into, and she discovers that it's Lex Luthor's behind it all. That's kind of like a side story in the theatrical cut. It's this subplot which kind of felt out of place. I didn't really feel like it needed to be there. It's like, why didn't they just cut that out of the film? I even said that in my initial review, that just felt like it could have been cut. But in the Ultimate Edition, they add more to it, and I was thinking, oh, this is going to make it worse. But no, it makes it better, because whereas in the theatrical cut, it was like, it seemed kind of like some unnecessary subplot. It's actually one of the main storylines that the entire film revolves around. And the bits they add back into with this film, the Ultimate Cut, it makes a whole lot more sense now, because a lot of the events of the film revolve around that storyline, which was really kind of chopped up and cut down in the theatrical cut to the point where it didn't really make sense why it was there. Whereas in this film, a lot more of that storyline was put back in. And even though I don't think that's what the film really should have been about, it kind of what it was about, it all revolved around that essentially. And Lex Luthor's plan and how he was involved with all these different things, a lot more of those scenes were put back in, so it made a lot more sense. Where I did understand the theatrical cut, it's not as if I didn't get it, but there were some bits that kind of left to audience interpretation where I was like, wait, hang on a minute, so what? And you had to kind of figure it out yourself, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but in the theatrical cut, it was kind of like there was stuff missing and you couldn't really figure it out because you didn't really know what was really going on. Like, there was stuff missing, like I said. But in this, they put bits back in where certain scenes and certain storylines are more fleshed out, where it makes a lot more sense now. It's like, oh, okay, I get it now. There is a reason now why that storyline is in this film. It works a lot better now, it makes a lot more sense. So that's the biggest improvement with this Ultimate Cut, I think, is the whole kind of, the editing's better, it flows a lot better, certain scenes, certain storylines now are more fleshed out, make a lot more sense. However, a lot of the big issues and criticisms I have with the theatrical cut, I still have with this Ultimate Cut. The whole thing surrounding the fact that the Batman v Superman fight happens so late into the film. It's like, now it's not just an hour and a half into the film, it's 2 hours we have to wait until we get that fight. And although I liked the fight, I thought it was a good fight. It's like, the film is called Batman v Superman. It's supposed to be about Batman v Superman, and we don't get the Batman v Superman fight until 2 hours into the film, and then like pretty much straight after that it's the final battle teaming up against Doomsday. I really think the whole structuring of the story was just all wrong. And in my opinion, if I was to have done this film, I would have had the Batman v Superman fight either as the central action sequence, like halfway through the film, at the midpoint of the film, the big central action sequence of the film should have been Batman v Superman. Either that, or it should have been the final battle. The big climactic final battle should have been Batman v Superman, because it's called Batman v Superman. I really don't think it was necessary to have them teaming up, taking on Doomsday at the end. I kind of get it, why it was there, kind of dawn of the Justice League and all that, but it just felt like it was tacked on. It felt like it didn't need to be there. This should have just been Batman v Superman. And I suppose my biggest criticism with the film is the fact that it feels like 3 films jammed into one. It's essentially a Batman solo film, a Man of Steel sequel, a Batman v Superman film, and a Justice League prequel, so 4 films really, all jammed into one, and it doesn't really work. I like the whole Man of Steel sequel parts of the film, and I like the whole Batman solo parts as well. But the whole Batman v Superman aspect was kind of like not really the main thing about the film, which is what it should have been all revolving around that, really. It was kind of a mesh of all these different things all jammed together in one film, and I think they should have just focused on the Batman v Superman aspect of the film. A lot more time should have been given and should have been dedicated to the whole Batman v Superman titular conflict. It should have been about a clashing of ideologies, a clashing of differences. It shouldn't have just been a physical clash. It should have been an ideological clash. There should have been a lot more of confrontation there. There should have been a lot more dialogue between the two of them, a lot more talking. And I get the fact they went a different route. It was more of just a physical confrontation, a physical conflict. But there should have been a lot more dialogue exchanges between the two of them, and a lot more of an ideological clash, and a lot more of a kind of them having differences in terms of their approaches and that. And they really rarely ever talk to each other in the film. But anyway, I'm getting off track here. So really what I'm trying to say is I really feel like if I was to have done the film, I would have either cut the whole teaming up against Doomsday off at the end and had Batman v Superman, the big climactic battle at the end of the film, and then had another little one halfway through, or have the central action sequence be Batman v Superman. Civil War proves that the final battle of the film can just be the two heroes fighting. You don't need to have them teaming up against the big bad. And I think it was a mistake for them to do that, and then of course jamming in Death of Superman, it had all these different storylines all jammed together into one film. I just don't think it really worked. They should have just focused on Batman v Superman. Anyway, as far as new scenes that I've put back in, we got a lot more of Superman, which I liked, a lot more of Clark Kent, a lot more of Clark Kent doing his job, doing investigative reporting, investigating into who the Batman is. And although I like those scenes, I like the fact that we got more Superman, we got more of Clark Kent, which we really got hardly any of that in the original version, the theatrical cut. I did like it because it gave more to Superman's side of the story. We saw more from Clark Kent. And it was more balanced in a way. It was more kind of half and half Batman and Superman. But in a way it kind of did a disservice to the film in that the first version, it was a lot more Batman. It was a lot more from his perspective, from his point of view. But it kind of worked because Batman had more of a stronger, more powerful reason why he didn't like Superman, why he wanted to take down Superman. So being from his perspective, we were able to root for him. We were able to like, yes, go on, take him down. But as soon as they added in more Superman scenes and more from Clark Kent, as soon as we were able to sympathise with him a lot more and feel for him a lot more, so it was kind of like, even though they balanced it out, it's like, who are we supposed to be feeling for here now? Who are we supposed to be rooting for? And we see Batman beating up Superman. Instead of being like, yes, go on, take him down, Batman, come on, get your revenge, take him down. Now we're kind of like, oh, we kind of feel sorry for Superman. It's kind of like he's just been beaten up by this bully. It's like Batman's just bullying him. We're like, what? I don't know. I like the fact that there was more from Superman's side of the story. There was more Clark Kent scenes. But at the same time, because it's not as focused as much on just solely Batman's perspective and Batman's point of view, it's now kind of like we don't really know who to root for now in this fight. We don't really know who to feel sorry for, what we should be really thinking or feeling. Whereas in the theatrical cut, because it was more from Batman's perspective and because it was more from his point of view, we were able to get behind him a lot more and be like, yes, we really understood why he wanted to take down Superman. And although we didn't get a lot from Superman's perspective in terms of we didn't really understand wholly why he really hated Batman and really wanted to take him down, it kind of worked because it was, like I said, more from Batman's perspective. So we were able to get behind him a lot more. But as soon as he added the Clark Kent scenes in more, I did like the fact that they fleshed out him as a character more and gave him more to do, but at the same time, because it was more half and half, it's kind of like, who are we supposed to be rooting for here? Who are we supposed to be kind of getting behind? Who are we supposed to be kind of feeling for? So it's like, I don't know, I did like the film overall, and I did like the fight, I did like the action, I did like the visuals, there was a lot I liked about this film. I think it's just, the thing that I didn't like kind of bugged me and got on my nerves. I gave the theatrical cut 3 stars. I'm not sure if I would bump the Ultimate Edition up to 4 stars or not, because I did like it more than the theatrical cut, but I don't know if it was enough of an improvement to be considered 4 stars. I'm not too sure yet. I don't really do half ratings, I don't really do 0.5. It just unnecessarily overcomplicates it, and it's just too many options to choose from. If I was to though, I probably would give it 3.5, but I don't know. It's definitely closer to a 4 star than the theatrical cut was for me. It's just that, even though there was a lot I liked about it, which you wouldn't think there was off this video, but go and watch my film review, there is a lot I liked about it. The things I didn't like about it really bugged me, got my nerves, like I said. I feel like they could have done a much better job than they did. But that being said, I did like the Ultimate Cut more than the theatrical version. It's just, it wasn't enough of an improvement to make it that much of a better film, I don't think. And there we go, that's all my thoughts on Batman v Superman the Ultimate Edition. If you want to know my full in-depth thoughts on the entire film in general, the theatrical cut anyway, be sure to check out my film review for Batman v Superman. I do go on a bit, it is a bit long, but I talk about everything I liked, disliked, all of it really. So yeah, if you like this video, make sure to click subscribe to see more. But for now, I've been David O'Sullivan. I'll see you next time.